Here we are back again and broadcasting out of the White Hart Hotel, Mirador Television. And up next, his nibs himself, Stewart Dalby. Now, Stewart has got a special guest coming in at 10 o'clock, but between now and then, as usual, it is vitally important that we are kept up to date on energy matters. So, pray silence, please, for Stewart Dalby and Energy Matters.
Well, good morning, everybody. I've got bad news for you, really. I think tomorrow is doomsday, by which I mean that it looks like that the big six cartel of energy suppliers are going to be able to actually announce excess profits. The reason is this, that when the gas price went down after Mr. Putin seemed to actually cut off his supply. Okay, right, it went down. And the energy cap had certain technicalities. It turns out that the energy, for example, I got a message from EDF putting my tariff up from 180 to 230. That's 50% increase, and that seems going to be happening to everybody because as the tariff went down, and the energy cap went slightly up, which meant they could save up. So tomorrow morning, I think you might find, in fact, the regulator Ofgem is apparently aware of that there could be excessive profits and is going to try and do something about it. But their record about doing things like this is very, very poor indeed. And that is really quite a problem, isn't it, actually?
In other words, they can't smack the fingers of the suppliers.
Yeah, quite. Yeah.
So where does that leave us as consumers?
Well, it leaves us slightly worse off, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, certainly. I mean, it's clear to me that mine has gone up 50%. Well, more other people will probably have the same thing. And if you go back to the other an earlier thing, the first day of January in 2022. Okay, to the end of June, this is only interim profits. British Gas made a gross profit of £1.3 billion. Now, what happened to these £2.3 billion? Well, for starters, the chief executive got a salary of £2 million. Secondly, all the shareholders apparently had all their shareholdings doubled, and then British Gas had to give a lot of money to its mother company, Centrica, because they needed it to invest in storage.
Right. What is Centrica British?
British Gas is the owner of the British Gas.
Yes, but is Centrica British?
Yeah, well, yeah.
What
we're trying to say here right now, in the cartel, right? British Gas is British. EDF is French.
Right.
Money goes there.
Right.
E.ON is German.
Mm-hmm.
Money goes there.
Right.
Empower is German. Goes to Germany.
Right.
Scottish Power is owned largely by the Spaniards. Right. But the basic point I'm trying to make out is that these people are making reckless profiteering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And not even in this country.
No, quite. Yeah. It's like the water stuff about, in a way, you know.
Yeah. Now, you've made much of Ofgem, and you more or less say that it's toothless. What's the point in having it if it's toothless?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, for example, talk about reckless profiteering. Jonathan Brearley gets a salary of 310,000. nearly 500,000.
Yeah.
Like a banker, isn't he?
Yes, absolutely.
Why don't you go and work at Coots?
But you know, the funny thing is that you and I would sit here and we would watch people march in the streets and talk about profiteering, and we say, "Hey, these are left-wing socialists and so on. They don't understand business." But in fact, a business is getting out of control, is it not? I mean, we are seeing huge salaries, huge profits, but at the same time, it's you and I paying for it.
No, well, we've got other things on energy matters at the moment. First of all, Mr. Keir Starmer is in an absolute rage because Sadiq Khan actually put a green tariff of 12 quid a day of a car going in. And he said, we're never going to win the election if you keep doing that. And then, whoa, God, maybe. I think, this Financial Times this morning has come up with a very, very strange headline, to my thinking. Sunak ready to overhaul green targets for landlords as general elections near. The reason is that apparently the EPC, energy provider certificate, right, has turned out that the green project means that the energy sufficiency is not good enough, and therefore they're going to abandon the EPC because the EPC is just not effective, or not effective enough to actually supply the energy that's needed.
Right.
Yeah.
So is in your professional opinion, if you were in charge, if you were sitting there and you were Rishi at the moment and you were about to say, do this, do that, do the other, what steps would you say to both the regulator and to the companies? Hey, look, get your act together. This is what I think you should be doing.
I'd resign.
I mean, it does seem to me to be an untenable situation. And I mean, Stewart, you've been a long-time journalist. As you know, what seems to be calm with untenable situations is it bubbles under the surface and then suddenly it bursts out. And I suspect that this one's going to burst out. So if you were sitting as a CEO of one of these companies, what would you be saying before it bursts out and it engulfs me? What is it that I should do?
Take out a bank account in Cayman Islands.
I mean, you really think it's an impossible situation for them?
I think so. I think that, look, I am a capitalist, but I'm not an excessive capitalist. And, you know, what is interesting about, what is interesting about the water situation? They're so short of money, they keep going and so forth and so on. And it looks like it's possible that they might nationalise the water companies, which is a very interesting thought, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Particularly if it's a Conservative government doing it.
And if they can knock off the water supplies, they might turn attention to the energy game.
Right.
The energy cartel.
Yeah. So I mean, you think that's a distinct possibility, do you?
Well, I'm not sure. I think it's a possibility, yeah. Not a probability, but a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, they must be searching for solutions. Yeah. I mean, they're not so thick that they're sitting there thinking that this is going to last forever. I mean, let's face it. The last time that the energy prices leapt, there was general outrage, and this government had to do something about it. I mean, they gave subsidies and all sorts of things to individuals. The general public aren't going to tolerate this sort of increase and profiteering for much longer, are they?
I wouldn't have thought so.
No. I mean, as an expert, are you alarmed by that?
Well, if you're talking about we have a market economy, it could go on forever, couldn't it?
Well, it could, but in a market economy, you've got to have a consumer, haven't you? And if the consumer gets pissed off and it won't buy,
right.
I mean, we do live in an age of activism, don't we?
Well, what are you going to use for energy? Put a bloody fire in your front room? Come on.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, but by the same token, you know, on some other things, green issues and so on, we got people taking gum and sticking it on their trousers and sticking themselves to the road. In other words, I mean, people are, and I mean, you know, disrupting the Grand National and disrupting the Cup final. And
because of fossil fuels.
Well, for a whole host of reasons.
Yeah.
What I'm really saying is that if it gets too much, is we do live in an age where protest breaks out. And I mean, I just wonder whether you can see that sort of protest breaking out. As you say, we can't light a fire in our front room, but are we going to see large groups of people protesting?
Look, protests, right? The Greens are basically a protest group,
right?
Essentially, and so is Extinction Rebellion, right? Now, these kind of organisations have wonderful goals and wonderful aims, right? But they haven't got the slightest clue about what to do about them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And they just don't know what to do about them. So you have like Extinction Rebellion that they haven't got a clue what you do to actually improve, so forth and so on. And yeah.
It's like that baby's bib.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want, but I want it now.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
But I mean, as an observer of the energy sector, are you? I mean, you're obviously alarmed at the and appalled at the huge profits and the huge salaries and so on and so forth. But I mean, you must get a feeling that something has got to give somewhere.
Well, I don't know. I don't. You know, we're in a capitalist society, aren't we? So it's a situation. I mean, these are capitalists.
Yeah.
You know, they're not.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
But you have got a budget. I've got a budget.
Yeah.
If I have to pay 3 times more for my energy, then something's got to give somewhere. Yeah. So I don't go to the sweetie shop and buy a bar of chocolate. Therefore, that sector takes a hit.
Yeah.
There's got to be sort of a counterbalance, hasn't there?
I suppose so. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. People don't really. Well, you're getting fuel poverty. That kind of thing. Well, what can you do about it? Except, move the old thing back.
Yeah.
It's very, very worrying, though, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, are we edging, for instance? I mean, I'm asking you to speculate, but when you speculate, it's unlike other people speculating because you've got a very good background and a lot of knowledge. I mean, you just said that the chances are that the water companies could be nationalised. Yeah. I mean, can you see us going back to a nationalised society where a lot of these utility companies that are busy making huge profits at the moment are actually nationalised, renationalised?
I don't know. You would need to ever sort of go way back a long way, wouldn't you? When you're privatising everything. The thing about privatisation or nationalisation is that the people who were running these nationalised papers weren't paid enough. Because they weren't paid. Weren't paid enough to run the railroads, weren't paid enough, so forth and that. So it went back to privatisation again.
Right.
And also, it's that wretched woman, Mrs. Thatcher. She believed in privatisation. She didn't believe in nationalisation to help everybody. The bloody socialists. I'm not having that.
No, mind you. I mean, if we sat here and debated nationalisation against privatisation, there are arguments on both sides. There are some things that should never ever have been privatised. But by the same token, I mean, there's still the question of the coal mines hankers on, but they were losing money hand over fist, and our shipbuilding industry couldn't compete because the Taiwanese were busy building cheap ships. So it's not just a domestic issue, is it?
There was very, very cheap coal coming in from God knows where, from Peru or somewhere, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Or somewhere, yeah. But Thatcher got rid of the miners, and that enabled her, because of the North Sea bonanza, to destroy all those kind of businesses and all of industry if it came around to it, didn't it? There's Derek. Hello, Derek.
Morning, Derek.
Hi. Okay.
Right. Well, you stay where you are, Stewart, and I
yeah.
will see. I will see Derek in, and then you can introduce your guest.
Yeah.
I will sit on the borders just to make sure that you've got a twitchy finger on the controls. My twitchy finger, which gets it all wrong every morning, and I shall leave you to Stewart Dalby in conversation.
Okay.
Let me just turn this slightly that way. We'll bring Derek in. Coming in, Derek.
Thank you. Hi. Right.
There you go. It's all changed at Mirador this morning. Let's just we've got both of you there. I will sit with my hand on the switch. And away you go.
Right. Good morning, everybody, again. Look, my guest today is not only a good friend, he's a commentator on social media, and also he has a day job of being a roadie. Now, could you tell our viewers what a roadie is?
I don't know. We basically look after all the equipment and get it to the venues on time and make sure it's all working and put the lights up in the air and the PA up in the air and tune all the guitars and the drums, and it's a long-winded job. It goes 18 hours a day sometimes, but it's very rewarding, and you get around the world a lot.
Yeah, quite. And you're I think you're doing a tour at the moment, aren't you?
I'm not at the second, but I will be in. We start in October. October the 24th, I think. I start with Sircliffe.
Sircliffe, oh my goodness!
And then we.
He's still at it, isn't he?
He's still at it. Yeah, he's 82 and he's still going strong. And thank goodness for that, because it means I get paid.
But when I said that you were a commentator on social media, what kind of I've had the example of what kind of things you're interested in Lewis politics and that kind of thing. You don't come from Lewis, presumably.
I do.
You do?
Are
you born
here? Yeah, I've been here about 70 years approximately. But my dad was born in Cooksbridge, so you can't get much more local.
Right. So now, I know at the moment you're quite heavily involved in the human nature.
Sadly, yes.
Which I'm actually likely to call the human nature fiasco.
Yeah.
Now, let's tell people what this is. Well, you talk about it to people.
Well, basically, they're developing the mess that is down in the old ironworks down in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And it can't be easy. I've got to give them that. It is an awful mess. I mean, some of it has been demolished prematurely, I feel, but I believe that was to keep planning application up to date. If you didn't do anything, then the planning would just lapse. I mean, I don't understand all the laws and regulations, but that's what I think it is. And unfortunately, they've taken on something that, strangely, and I find it very odd that none of it's a huge site. I find it very odd that none of the top named companies with proven, success records of achieving these things haven't touched it.
Yes, but I mean, the green people support it.
I think they do, but then
they think it's going to be a utopia town of greenness and all that kind of thing.
I think that the CEO of Human Nature has an idea in his head of what he would like it to be, but I don't think. I mean, he's also had to put it up to. I mean, I am defending a bit, but it's they've had to go to 700 homes to make any money out of it, whereas the last lot, same time, I think they were trying something like 400 or 500 homes, and they just couldn't make the sums work. So
and also, we did I know, and your supporters, which happened to be me, we found out that they haven't really got much money.
Well,
hardly any money.
Well, who knows? I've never seen any accounts. So I can't really effects of that. But it just seems to me that there's that they might be struggling to get it together. But I mean, obviously they're waiting on the South Downs National Park Planning Authority.
But also there are other issues, aren't there? I mean, they say they're going to have affordable housing. Well, the issue of affordable for who?
Well, again, there is that. I mean, their idea of how much people earn in Lewis is I mean, I can't believe it. It's something like 25 grand or something a year. I mean, I don't think
not enough to get a mortgage.
No,
Yeah.
no, but it's also you know, it's a very expensive town. We all know that, and it's to get a foothold in it. I mean, I've been lucky in as much as the missus had a house and I've moved in there, and so it hasn't really. I mean, I had a house as well, but that's gone. But yeah, it's a funny old thing. It's just, I mean, there's the problem I find with it is this psychopathic hatred of motor cars that seems to be occurring, and they're going to put a 4-story building. They're trying to put a 4-story building called the Health Hub. Why is everything called a hub? Is this a pub hub? You know,
a hub is something that goes round and round.
I thought so. A hub, I think that's on a wheel. But it's something that everything gets called that now. Health
But also, there's been all
co-mobility hub that they're going to put up.
There's been other problems, hasn't there? 83,000 people complained or protest about the trees.
I think it's near 85.
But they cut all the trees down. They want to cut all the trees down, and then some investigations was made, and they said the older trees are not fit. They're
that's nonsense. We've had proper arboricultural specialists.
Said they're diseased, didn't they?
So well, that's a developer's excuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Diseased, decayed, damaged, or there's a whole list of them that they can.
The young trees do not take in as much as carbon as the older ones, you see. So they wanted.
They've got plenty of years left in them. Yeah. And they just basically I think they want to put this bus lay-by in, which is another story. But
I don't know that one. What's the bus lay-by?
Well, the bus story, it's Generator Group have bought, I mean, very, very bad, narrow-minded view on the future of Lewis. That they sold the bus station, and I think it was Brighton Oak Buses that sold it. I'm not sure. I don't think the council got involved. The council could have gone in and bought it, but you know, it was a few years ago, and Generator Group have let them use it for donkey's years, and while they've been trying to get planning permission to put in this unbelievably unsightly mass of flats, which of course are not going to be affordable. And well, at least they got parking, which is more than that lot down there are doing. And so as a result, that one of the rules that the South Downs National Park Planning Authority have said to them is that before you can demolish the bus station, you have to provide an alternative, and there's one going past now, an alternative place for these buses to stop and for drivers to get out and have a rest break, and for people to shelter in when we have, because we're not in the tropics. It's quite, although it might seem like it sometimes. we're in, you know, we're in UK, and it does get a bit inclement now and then with snow and rain and frost, and
it's not fun being on School Hill when it's raining.
No, exactly. I mean, they put these temporary bus shelters down the bottom of the School Hill, but they have to provide this alternative site for these buses, and the ones going to Upfield and Eastbourne and that go up at the moment, come up the High Street and round the corner and back down and across Phoenix Causeway, and they're intending, they chop the trees down there on the left hand side of the causeway as you go down. They can put in these extra lanes to take 3 buses, and their co-mobility hub, which is basically the English version, is a multi-story car park. But it's got to be a hub. But the bus stop hub they're intending on putting up is they have to chop all these trees out to get it there. I think it's a combination of two things. It also gives them the chance to build right up against the causeway, because they get rid of all the tree root problems.
Well, all these things are overshadowed by this strange political situation which is obtained. Yeah.
Well, we brought that on ourselves, unfortunately. Well, I didn't, but certain people in this town had, by electing this protest group called the Green Party.
What happened was this: that up until the last election, there was a coalition of the Greens and the Lib Dems, which were running the place quite well, we think, and so forth and so on. But when James Cleary, the leader of the Lib Dems, approached the Greens to have a coalition with them, they said no. And it says that it meant that the Greens, that story was, I better not mention this, but the Greens managed to get a coalition with the Labour Party. That meant that the Green Party and Labour's had 23 seats and the Lib Dems 15 seats. So we've now got a one-party state. It's because the Green Party really, and I think personally, my own person is that because I'm a very green person. I have a Greenway website. I have no car and all the rest of it, but I cannot support the Green Party because I have found them to be managerially totally incompetent. And I'm afraid that we are going to end up like Brighton was last time. And therefore, and also this affects all that's going on in terms of development. And we can come to that, but let's consider just on the human nature first, or maybe we could talk.
We could mix and match. Because I would like to say to Derek, love us or hate us, but we believe that a good democracy needs a strong opposition, and we've actually had James McCleary in here. And I think that we are slowly spurring them to realise that they are the opposition. And they've got to start behaving like the opposition.
They've got to start
and perhaps we're having a slight effect there, but it's something we shall keep after them to be. We're not political. We're not very happy with the Green Labour Lib Dem Labour Green coalition. But nonetheless. We do believe in a very strong democracy, and a good opposition is one of them. So we're supporting the opposition.
No. This takes us to the other campaign that you're involved in, and that's the Southover House. Now, Southover House it's now empty. It was the centre for the what's the word? The district council. This council, and. It wasn't the Green Party this time, but it was the Lib Dems, I think. They said that the Charleston could come and be in Southover House for 5 years with no rent. Okay? And of course, it turns out that there was lots of opposition to this because maintaining Southover House it costs about 275,000 a year. And who's paying for that out of their council tax? Us.
Well,
that's £1 million quid.
They have put that it's actually Charleston. I mean, I haven't seen any accounts again. Nobody seems to want to show anybody any accounts.
Oh, well, I've seen some.
And they seem to think that Charleston will be paying that upkeep. But I don't get it because it's not. I mean, it belongs to the people of Lewis. At the end of the day, all these things that they're giving away. Belong to the people of Lewis, and they should be put to making money for the people of Lewis. And so that the rates don't go up 5% every year. And
but I have seen some personal results that. Someone who went to the Register of Charities Trusts, and it turns out that Charleston is rolling in money. And we saw the accounts, and money in hand, 930 930,000 in money in hand. Assets 8.5 million. Revenue in the last year 500,000. They're as rich as Croesus. And why are we actually supporting subsidising it? Yeah. And
The
then
other interesting thing is that you've been looking for accounts from the district council, and they're as scarce as hen's teeth.
Well, apparently so.
And that is wrong. Is they have a statutory duty to let us know what the accounts are. And I'm glad that there are groups like yours who are probing and saying, where are these things?
We're asking questions and generally not getting many answers.
No, but we must continue, and we're doing the same thing. We must continue to ask these questions because democratically and legally, they are duty bound to show what the accounts are.
well, actually, before he died, Declan showed me some accounts, right? And there was no figures on it whatsoever.
And that was for
19, I think it's 2019 or something like that.
Yeah.
How can it, I mean, if I don't put any figures on my accounts, I get fined all sorts of money.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not in anywhere near that league. You know.
I mean, the accounts for the Stanley, the sports field down here, Stanley
Turner ground.
Is they went filed for 2 years.
And what about the ones the access road to Charleston? 330,000 for that.
Yeah.
Whose money was that?
Yeah.
And now look,
they seem to do things without telling us as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And also, there's other things now that you've discovered, that there's a huge thing about New Haven, isn't there?
But yeah, I mean, I had a discussion on Facebook, like you do, and it turns out there's something like £10 million. I mean, it is government money, I'm told, but at the end of the day, I think government money is our money. It comes out of our pocket.
That's right.
You know, so it's. But they're putting a 500 square meter cafe or something, and volleyball courts, beach volleyball courts, and a gymnasium on the front of New Haven. And I can see all of New Haven going down there and playing beach volleyball. but hey, it's spending money. And
what about the playgrounds?
The playgrounds. Yeah, they're spending. I think this is the Green Party, but I guess it must have got a grant because they claim not to have any money to mow lawns, but they are putting in £400,000 into 4 playgrounds, one in Seaford, one in New Haven, and 2 in Lewis.
What's £1,000 each?
It's £100,000 each.
Is it? Oh.
And it's to upgrade the equipment. But I mean, all they need to do really is to mow the blooming fields and spend 20 quid on 5 footballs and give them to the kids, and the kids will be happy as
Absolutely.
You know, it just I think it's nuts. But what do we know?
Well, I mean, you asked the right question. I mean, Stewart introduced you as being a commentator on social media, and sometimes, as you well know, I make excessive claims on social media just to get people going.
Yeah.
And occasionally, you and I have crossed swords,
Well,
and that's the way it should be.
Only in amusement.
Absolutely. No. I mean, in the most friendly way, I'm going to say, But you know, the debate is on social media. Why isn't the debate in the political sphere?
Well, that's right.
Nobody says boo.
But I mean, I think it all seems to be a bit of subterfuge here going on. You know, they've moved into one of the shops, one of the many empty shops in the high street, to make it look like something's happening. I mean, I expect to be employing people to run around in some of the other empty shops, like, you know, oh look, it's busy. You know, it's again. Then having done that, you find that human nature want to build on the cheapest big car parking site down there. It's back on their hatred of motor cars, and of course a Green council is fully behind them because they don't like motor cars either. They're not taking into account the fact that we might be using electric, although I'm not over keen on electric either. But we could possibly progress onto using hydrogen.
Yeah.
Which would be a great thing, because all that chucks out is water.
Yeah.
I've actually driven a hydrogen car.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Up in Unst, my house in Shetlands, in Unst, right? Guy had 2 little turbines, right? With green energy, put it through an electrolyzer, right? And then through fuel cell.
All right.
Right. But the problem with hydrogen is it needs lots of space. And back then, you see, we had to put the hydrogen in Konos, and I said, "Oh, well, it's a hydrogen car. Would you like to drive it?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." I said, "How far would it get to me?" He said, "Oh, get you to Lerwick, 50 miles away." I said, "How do I get back?" He said, "Yeah, that's the problem." The fact of the matter is, because of our hydrogen can't be stored, right?
But that's what's been going on with electric cars. You know, when they first came out, people were saying, "Oh, you know, it only goes 50 miles, and then we've got to charge it up again. It's going to take 4 hours to charge it."
Don't stop. You see, the difference there is energy density. Lithium has got more energy density than.
But it's also got kids down mines in Brazil mining it, which is why my major objection.
Actually, it's very interesting you should do that, because one of my areas of expertise is CSR, corporate social responsibility, which is global, of course. And I actually, until the start of this year, the lockdown sort of stopped a lot of it, but I lectured on it in London. And I, as a matter of fact, I had President Nkrumah's grandson in one of my courses from Ghana.
Actually, in fact, there is lithium in Cornwall. No, Cornwall's economy was totally supplied on tin at one stage, right? Nobody knew about lithium. Now, hang on a second, let me finish. And I actually discovered by somebody who lives in Cornwall that there is lithium there. And my Green Matters side, I found there was a company called Cornish Lithium, and I put it on my website, and it had an amazing following. That Green Barrel has actually restored the economy of Cornwall. But then again, you've got, as you say, it's a rare earth. Lithium is a rare earth, and there's not a lot of it, basically.
You see, that's one side of the story. On social media here, when the row with what's the name of the group for the bus station?
Generator Group.
Yeah, Generator Group. I said, why don't we challenge them on corporate social responsibility, which is covered in this country by legislation? Nobody in the bloody council knew what I was talking about. If we're based on that ignorance, for God's sake, where can we go? But I want to, Stewart, if I could ask Derek, because he's a long-time resident, 70 years in this.
On and off, but mainly on.
Now, this town has seen various fortunes. It's gone from being an industrial town to a university town to an artistic town.
It was a market town as well.
And all sorts of
had a huge market down by the station.
Right, it's been all sorts of things. At the moment, what it is, it's a dormitory town, so therefore it's quite wealthy. But those things are likely to move on as well. With a lot of this affordable social housing, which isn't affordable, are these developers going to find that they're going to be left with all sorts of things on their hand when it's less fashionable to live in Lewis?
Well, that's another worry, is that if with this building thing down here, the human nature thing, is if they get sort of they're going to build one parcel to start with, and if they can't sell those 10, whatever, the tiny boxes that they're putting up in this first parcel, what's going to happen to the rest of it? Just going to end up another, a mess down there. And again, as you say, these.
If you look at the picture, it looks dreadful, doesn't it? It looks like a bloody prison block.
It's awful. But it's. I have very little sympathy, but it's a difficult nut to crack, really, because the state of the soil down there and the flood defences, and everything else. It's going to cost a fortune to anybody before they even start building, you know. So it's but it needs a rethink, a total rethink. I'd have put a load of very expensive houses along the river with big gardens and charge a fortune for them and get very, very wealthy people to buy them.
You get rid of Tesco's, wouldn't it?
Well, no, because it's the other side of the river, isn't it? But there's also, of course, the bonfire night. Waterloo Bonfire Society over the water. That'll go down well when you're in your backyard. I mean, I sit where I am in Spring Gardens on Bonfire night. I'm not against it, by the way. If anybody starts complaining about my view on Bonfire, it rattles the windows in our house, and we're not 500-600 yards minimum away from it, and if you're going to be in one of those houses that side of the river, it's going to do more than rattle your windows, I feel. But yeah, so it's
let me ask you both, and let me ask you again, Derek, can you, if you sort of start to think ahead, which our councillors obviously aren't, if you think ahead, can you see a change in the nature of this town?
Yes, I mean it's changing all the time, as Lewis always had. But it's there's things like working from home and one of these things in front of you, and you know, and you don't have to. You may have to go into the office once a week, you know. So I mean, we all come out with the DFL nonsense, but people have got to live somewhere, and to be honest, I don't blame them getting out. I'm not very keen on London, I'm afraid. But if you the trouble is, I don't want Lewis to become a mini London, you know, and I can see it going that way.
Even a mini Brighton, we don't want.
I perish the thought. I went down there the other day for my daughter's 30th birthday party. On the Sunday, the Saturday, the Royal Albion Hotel had caught fire, and on the Sunday I turned up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a bus and got off the bus at the Old Stein, and it's surrounded by smoke. It was awful, but fortunately it didn't stink in the restaurant.
Royal Albion was where Graham Greene wrote the what's his name, the famous book Brighton Rock.
Oh right,
yeah.
I remember once.
I
remember once seeing him walk along the front, and I was going to go up and call him because I was a great fan of his because of Vietnam and all that kind of thing. And I said, and eventually, I did get to have lunch with Graham Greene, and we were in Belfast, as a matter of fact. And I said, "Oh, yeah. Well, you've written about Africa and also Vietnam, and what I know you're a very religious man, and here we are in Belfast. Why are you here? Why are you in Belfast?" He said, "What do you think about Belfast?" I said, "I'm here because I'm too old to get killed."
I wonder if you wouldn't mind if I just switch the conversation slightly at the moment, because you work with Cliff Richard and other famous people. Yeah. Now, is yesterday we paid some tribute to George Agar, and also Trevor Francis. Two very well-known people, very famous people, but who were gentlemen. Now, with the famous people that you work with, because I've also worked with shits, excuse the expression. How do you find the famous?
They're like us, really. It's just they got some more money, but the vast majority of them are very, very pleasant people. And Cliff especially. I mean, he's a lovely man.
Can I actually just agree here that I agreed to the Bob Dylan mantra, which says heroes are not heroes once you've met them.
Once you've met them,
right.
That's it.
My friend Don McCullin is a great friend of mine, and I don't go to him saying, "God bless you, sir." He's just my mate. We just talk, you know.
Exactly. I mean,
and these people don't want to be bloody praised and
not all
of them, but some of them do. I mean, I've come across quite a lot that actually are very aware. As we say, they start to believe in themselves. But Cliff Richard is almost as old as I am. In fact, not quite.
So it's true, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm quite interested in how you find him.
Oh, he's great. He's not a problem at all. He calls me Del, and I call him mate. You know, and it's we get on. I mean, I've worked for him since I think my first tour was 1984. So I've been. I know him quite well,
right?
As you can imagine. And he used to take, well, he still does take the crew out, and on every tour we get taken out for a curry. He happens to like curry, and so do I like it. But yeah, so you know, he's not aloof in any way. You know,
right.
he'll come up and he'll ask. You know, he likes things to be done in such a way and all that. And he'll ask you what you think, you know, and you can convince him that this might not be the right way to go. Try and do something, and he'll take it on board. You know,
right.
He's not the superpower, rock star and all that sort of stuff. But no, him and there's lots of them are really not. As you say, you get the odd. I won't say, but that. Is really hard work, but the vast majority of them are just people who happen to have a job making organised noise. I call it, but it's music. And they're very good at it, and they pay me well, and they take me all around the world, and I've had some great times.
Where are you going to this time?
I'm going on a world tour of London, Blackpool, and Glasgow.
And back again.
and back again, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I must say that fulfills my tour too. I went to London when I was 6 years of age. I went to Brighton when I was 7 years of age. I went to Blackpool when I was 8 years of age. And as for Glasgow, I had to wait until I was 20-something.
They've all changed, obviously, but I mean, I quite like Glasgow these days. When I first did it, we did a show in a tiny little place in Sucky Hole Street, and it was I can't trying to think who it was. I was Magnum, I think, a heavy rock band, and it was full of quite big lads all enjoying themselves. There's one climbed up on the stage, and one of my jobs is making sure they don't climb up on the stage as well, So I went to go and push him off, and as I was going halfway across the stage, he was getting bigger and bigger, and I went, "Oh God!" And I just got to, and he turned around and jumped off. That was quite fortunate. But yeah.
So you must have had a lot of great experiences.
I've had some fantastic times all over the world, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah. Anyone that stands out in you?
Oh gosh, we're going around. What was the guy who was actually locked up in Australia? Who was a member of the press? I think it was something to do with it. Was it Kerry Packer or was it? I don't think it was him, but there's this press baron who'd been locked up in Australia, and we got to use his boat in Perth.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Who is it?
I can't remember, but it had this fantastic, huge motor launch, and we went cruising around in that, and we went to a bay and spent the day picnicking on this boat and swimming, and it was it's just those things that happen.
Yeah.
That completely out of the blue, And there's all sorts. I mean, flying and get the odd chance you get to fly in first class and all that's quite exciting. But and going up Cable Table Mountain in Cape Town and looking at the views there. I could go on for hours and bore everybody to death. But
it's one or two things that stand out in your mind, though. So.
Oh yeah, I mean,
the yacht was one of them, wasn't it?
Yeah, and going all over the world, just sightseeing, going to China, going to Beijing, and doing a show there, and with Vanessa May, bless her, the violin player. But she,
oh yes,
we that was quite an interesting one because we flew out to Hong Kong, and then flew from Hong Kong to Beijing, and we got. We had to do a show in Macau in a couple of days after that.
Really?
But there were two two different promoters, and neither of them would pay for me to stay in a hotel in Hong Kong. So I had to fly back to Hong Kong, fly back to London, because I had a return ticket with the one promoter and a return ticket to Macau from Heathrow with the other promoter. So I flew back to Hong Kong, then back to Heathrow, came home for a day, went back and got another flight back to Hong Kong, and then the boat out to Macau.
Yeah.
Was that in the days when the 27? It took about 27 hours to get to Hong Kong.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was.
Were you stopped in Frankfurt?
No, this
Dubai.
was a bit later.
So, yeah.
It was a British Airways. I went on it to make. I thought, well, it's a win-win because I get free food on the plane, and I don't have to pay for a hotel, and I'll get all the air miles. We've done hundreds of thousands of air miles doing this. When I got back and I put in for my air miles, they said, "Oh, it was a reduced fare ticket with no air miles on it." I was a bit gutted. But, yeah, I mean, these sort of things happen all the time. Going north of the Arctic Circle with our half doing a show, and we had a little cargo plane on skis.
But they're the Norwegian,
and it took off, and after about a mile on this ice, it finally started to take off.
This is the Norwegian game.
Yeah.
But did you like Macau?
I did actually. It was all right.
Because the thing about Macau was it had gambling.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't be gambling in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And it was just an incredible. And I used to go in the Bella Vista Hotel, and it was all right. And there was Stanley Ho, who had this bloody great business with a casino, and all kinds of things went in there. Don't go and ask that girl to walk along your back here. all kinds of deprivation was going on. It was incredible. But I don't know. I've got very good memories of my days in Hong Kong and Macau.
I went around the world with AHA. That was the Norwegian boys. And a massive hit with Take On Me, and it was it was with 10 months. We went around the world. We went to Australia, then we went to America. Before we got to America, we had 2 weeks in Hawaii for one show, which they just gave us a holiday.
Can I ask you, I'm in the same position as you as a journalist. I've been all around the world and so forth and so on. And eventually, it begins to get at you. You're in hotels by yourself.
Yeah.
You get burnt out by, all the hotels and the drink and so forth and so on. By the end of the day, you just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, there's quite a gang of us go. I suppose about 10 or 12 people that are actually permanently on the tour. We have local crew and things like that. And so you're never sort of on your own. And you do, on days off, you go out and have a few beers.
Yeah, but it
does. I mean, and some of the. I mean, we're staying in really nice hotels, but it does. And I love flying. Because I was an aircraft engineer to start with.
But it was it was the same with us. You see, back in the day, we were a gang. We were war correspondents. You get an email from there wasn't an email there, but there was where are you going from? Up, you only can't by telegram, and the telegram cost a word a minute. So you had a strange trigger when it says, "Upstart Pakistan, go Hong Kong, right? Go Hong Kong," and it was always the same gang. It was Johnny West from Edwards. It was Martin Roddick from this, and we were like a little incredible cavalry. Yeah. Go Vietnam onwards.
Nice. Stewart, Derek, we've had a lovely conversation for 40 minutes. Fascinating to find out about you. Not just somebody on social media saying, "You idiot, Keith." Lovely to cross swords with you in session. You're welcome back on this program anytime. You're a fascinating man. But also, one thing that Mirador is committed to, and that is a healthier and nicer Lewis. And you have the same commitment. And we always like to join forces with people like that. So, have you got anything else to ask,
No.
Stewart?
I'll probably see you later in the...
I should imagine so. Yes, in the watering hole.
Okay. Well, now I'm famous for getting all these things wrong technically. So but we'll have a go and see whether we've got it. Toodle pip, everyone.